like to introduce our speaker tonight. His name is Pastor Jason Meckelberg. He's a pastor at College Baptist Church, and he has a heart, I think, for local missions and is really instrumental in trying to bring a group called Love Inc. here to Hillsdale to really unite the work of local churches working together to serve our community. So, Jason, if you want to come up and present, please.
Thank you for that introduction, and I may lay this here just to make sure I can see what's going on. It's not connected to anything, but it does allow me to see a little bit easier than way up there. Love Inc. What is Love Inc.? That's the question before us, and that's the question I was asking when I started to research this and started to pray, and other people were doing the same kinds of things, starting to research this, starting to pray. As you know, we have needs in our county, and so those needs were coming into the church, and we're wanting some help, and so we were wanting to do that in a way that was actually helpful, and not just putting a Band-Aid on things. And so Love Inc. stands for Love in the Name of Christ. We want to be people that love Hillsdale County in the name of Christ. That's what the INC is. Today I want to look at a few things to bring to our attention our situation. So let's look at our situation briefly, look at our calling as followers of God and what He has for us as His church, His representatives on earth, and then the challenge that is before us. Our situation, what is our situation? How do we engage the world outside of our door? Hillsdale County is one of the poorer counties in our state. That's not probably news to you. When I found statistics, and this is from 2010, and so the newer statistics I could not find, but that says 15.6% of all people in the county would be considered to be living in poverty. With a total population of 46,600, that would leave nearly 7,300 people who would be living under the poverty line. And at some point in time, they may have needs that would cause them to seek help from the churches in our county. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to work with them? How are we going to meet that situation? Additionally, on top of that, we had just last month, or in July, the unemployment rate was 11%, quite a bit higher than the national average. And so we have a poverty level that's high, and some of those people are working, or they're what we'd call underemployed. They're working part-time, but they're not able to make things work all the way through the month. With those two things come together, we have a big need before us, and I think a big opportunity as well. State budgets have been cut for aid to areas, so they'll be coming out again in just a few weeks. The state budget starts on October the 1st, and soon after that, funds will be available to the Department of Human Services and to the Community Action Agency, but those funds run out rather quickly. And even though things are a little better than they were just 1 or 2 or 3 years ago, it's still tight for the people in our county, and that means when county funds are exhausted, they'll come looking for help from churches. We used to help, in June and July, average of about 4 families per month. And in the last 2 days, I've taken 3 calls myself, just in this week. And we've been helping probably 8 or 9 people a month in conjunction with other churches. So the need is coming to us. In fact, we've been hearing from people. I went to DHS, they didn't have any funds, they told me to come to your church. I went to CAA, they didn't have any funds, they told me to come to your church. A friend, I went and saw him at one church, and they said, go to your church. So people know that we are in the business of helping. We want to be bringing them aid, not just for the aid's sake, but just as a way of reaching them with the gospel. So that's the scene before us. We have an opportunity before us of a population that needs help, and they're coming to us. We don't have to go find them to talk about the Lord. They're coming right to our door. What is our calling then? Let's look at what Scripture has as descriptions of the church of Christ. From James, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works, can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things they need for the body, what good is that? And again from 1 John, by this we know love, that he laid his life down for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or in talk, but in deed and in truth. Okay. Is she freezing up?
Sure, I think he's several frames ahead of you.
No, I'm on number 2, so keep going about 6 or 8 frames. Keep going, yep. Okay, now 2 more after this one, and then another one. Thanks. Good, that's a good one to stop at. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." God's calling is on his church to be a force for good in the lives of those who have material and financial needs. We are to help their physical needs so that we can gain a hearing, so that they'll listen to what we have to say as to how Jesus Christ can meet their spiritual needs. You can advance one more. There you go. So, as pastors and people in the church in prayer, you know these things. This is not new for you to hear that this is what God has called us to do. It's not something we don't know we're supposed to do. We know that this is our calling. But the hard part is, how do we do it? How do we help people in such a way that we have limited time of ourselves, we have limited resources within the church? How do we help God's people in this time? Next slide, please. So that was our situation and our calling, and this is our challenge. How does the local church fulfill its calling in such a needy environment? How do we do this? And do it in such a way that we do it the right way. In light of these needs, what can a local church do? How do we help people and avoid being taken by a scam artist? And let me tell you, I'm one of the easiest takes in the world. I'll shell out money for just about anything, which is why I'm not in control of the money. We have a process, right? So that we would vote on some things within our committee. How do we help people, tangibly help people, rather than just apply a financial Band-Aid? We don't want to subsidize people who are living beyond their means, because that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to make them dependent on lots of other people. But how are we going to gain the opportunity to speak with them about their choices unless we do help them? Right? It's a tough situation. How do we connect the dots between meeting needs and proclaiming the message of the gospel? That's our challenge. How do we do this together? I think that we've been thinking about this for a while. I know that our church has. We've been asking questions, trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we meet the needs in Hillsdale County? And the answer is Love Inc., or Love Incorporated. Love Inc. is a network of churches and church-based age agencies. So this is people in the church working within Hillsdale County, partnering together to live out the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. The Great Commission is go into all the world and make disciples, right? The great commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself and to love the Lord your God first. Those things should come together. They should arrive in one package. Where we're loving our neighbor as ourselves and we're telling them how to become a disciple of Jesus. That's one thing that we can do together. So Love Inc., love in the name of Christ. Now, this next slide shows us a picture of an organizational, we have a little fuzziness up there. Can't quite see it. Imagine that house goes down around the edges. And in that one, we have the model of a church aid agency, right? A community aid agency. You can kind of get an idea. Church involvement is optional. We can give money to that aid agency and they go and do their work. And there are a number of aid agencies that do that within the county. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not the way Love Inc. works. People ask me this when I present all the time. Does our church just give the money to Love Incorporated and they give out the money as they see fit? And the answer is no. Because we believe that it is part of the calling of the church that the church gives out the money to help people that way. So we don't do that in your place. We don't have any kind of role that way. Ours is not the way we take in everybody's funds and then we funnel it out as we see fit. Love Inc. is the model of churches working together. So there we're at. So there you see, you've got the house, and the churches are inside, because the churches are Love Inc. The churches do the work themselves. So nothing, if you would have a program where you are able to help those with a benevolence offering and help meet some needs or utilities or car payments or anything like that, medical bills, you still do all of that. You still write the check yourselves. You still meet with the individual yourselves to talk to them about their situation, about their needs. The churches execute their program. And the program of Love Inc. is to make churches available to do this. Our program is to equip churches to relate to each other. Because churches make up Love Inc. Churches do the work of Love Inc. Churches relate to one another through Love Inc. Churches mobilize themselves and their people through Love Inc. Churches own Love Incorporated because churches are Love Incorporated. We do this in partnership with one another. And so the churches form this building we have here, and that goes out and meets the needs of families. So if a person were to come to you after coming to the Love Incorporated office, then you would sit down and talk with them and go through everything that you would want to do with them yourself before you would render aid. That's still your choice. And you can still choose to not render aid on a day or a month when it just doesn't work or the funds are not right there. So it's not a competition, it's a networking way to do this. Next slide, please. Churches are Love Inc. This is not a staff that's executing something on your behalf. If the churches don't become a part of this, it doesn't happen. We come together to make this work. It is an infrastructure. It's a back office plan. It is a way of relating to one another. It is a way of vetting people who come to seek aid so that that part of it is taken out. So we have the limited funds, we have limited time resources to work with people. We allow Love Inc. to do that work so that we have the freedom and the time to speak with them on our own. So for the partner church, Love Inc. is a tool, one of our tools, one of your tools, one of my church's tools, one of the Hillsdale County Church's tools to help each church to do its ministry in the county. Does that make sense a little bit? Here's what happens many times. A person would come into Love Inc. Let's have the next slide, please. And their house is on fire. Well, maybe not literally on fire, but there's a fire in their life, right? Maybe their car is broken down and they don't have enough money to repair their car. And if they don't repair their car, they're going to lose their job. Or they have overdue medical bills and their wages are being garnished. And sometimes the wages are garnished at an absurdly high rate. So you're living off of ramen noodles because the hospital is taking a huge percentage of your weekly paycheck. Maybe you have an eviction notice. What are you going to do? How do you get help? Your utilities may be shut off. We had a person come in today who said there's utilities are going to be shut off by Sunday, and then they got a reprieve back until later on next week. That's how they come in the door, because the windows of their house, their life are on fire. But if you look at the foundation of this, what's down below? In the black there, it says they have broken relationships. They may not have a job. They may be dealing with depression and they can't get going in the morning to go to work. Maybe they just have a low income and they just can't have any margin in their month. If any one thing doesn't go right, their whole life is shot because there's no extra. Those are the things that are deeper issues than just coming in the door because they can't pay a utility bill. Love Inc. allows us to have part of the process of vetting a person, finding out what they need, how we can help them. So we take care of the fire on top so that we have the time to shore up the foundation on the bottom. Because if we're only doing fire ministry, we're going to miss out on the things that are down deep. So Love Inc. enables churches to form relationships with people who have needs, to address the deeper issues in their life, to educate or mentor or support them, to grow their faith through being loved, and to transform lives in the name of Christ. If you come in to my church at the way it stands now, or the way it stood a few months ago, you would have to apply for aid at my church, and we'd be able to give you a certain amount because of limits, things that we've stated. And then you'd have to drive over to another church and find something. Then you have to drive to the Salvation Army. Then you have to drive to DHS, and you have to drive maybe to another church you heard about way out in this different part of the county. That's going to take a lot of time and a lot of gas money, and it's going to make you very nervous to do this over and over and over again. You can't form relationships with anybody in those churches. You have no time to do that. The Love Inc. model is to come into one office where one person who's working at the office will work with you one-on-one. And they will help you fill out all the applications, or one application that all of the Love Inc. churches will use together. We'll partner and say, this is one application. We'll accept all the information on this, so they only have to fill out one. They'll probably help you fill out any of the state applications, which I don't know if you've known this, but state applications are pages and pages long and fairly difficult to understand. So the Love Inc. volunteer helps them to do that, helps them to find aid, and then that volunteer calls churches themselves and say, hi, I'm from Love Inc. We have a person we'd like to recommend to you for services, and they would need X amount of dollars. Can you contribute anything this month to this person? And the church can say yes or no, depending on what their situation is for that time. But if the person, the Love Inc. volunteer, is calling all of these churches on behalf of the person with the need, they don't have to expend their limited funds to go drive to the churches. They don't have to spend their time, but they start to develop a relationship with their caseworker, right, the volunteer. And over time, that becomes very important, because once the need is done, then that caseworker can stop and say, now, how can I pray for you? What's going on in your life that's more than just bills? How are your kids doing? Get into their life a little bit more, because once the emergency need is taken care of, they have space and they have time and they have energy in their life to talk about spiritual things. But if they're running around, they don't have time to ask those questions or to talk about spiritual things, and we as church people don't have time to pursue them most of the time. So this allows the churches to do better what they're called to do, and it helps the people being rendered aid to slow down, to calm down, that they can actually hear the love of the people in the church. It's a great way this works out. And actually, a person in our church has been doing this on her own on behalf of our church for about 6 or 8 months. And it's been amazing, the difference, because she's starting to call these other churches just kind of informally. Once we kind of understood this, she starts calling all these churches and arranging an aid package from 2, 3, 4, 5 different churches sometimes that would never have come together if she wasn't involved. Sometimes people come in with a $700 utility bill. Well, no two churches can cover that. 3, 4, 5 churches maybe. But none of those churches will render aid, probably, the way it's set up now, unless the full amount of that $700 bill is pledged. Well, how are they going to know that? Who's going to tell them that it's all pledged? The person running around trying to figure this out? Well, in our case, Sandra knows all these people to work with. She'll call this person at this church and that person at DHS and get all the aid package put together, and the checks go out at the same time and the need is met. And the person is so relieved and they feel loved because someone took time to help them. And if you're loved like that, you'll listen. You'll listen about Jesus and what he has for us. So, what is a church responsibility? If you want to be a Love Inc. church, what's your responsibility? Continually present Love Inc. before the people so that we can talk to one another about it, so that we can raise up volunteers to staff the office, so that we can raise up funds to help run the office work that needs to happen. You can refer requests for help to the clearinghouse. That's this office that we have that we're hoping to get put up downtown, where people can come to an office that's not tied to any one church, so they feel nervous about coming into a church. We'll meet them downtown where they're at. So you would refer all requests to the Love Inc. staff people, so that way it's taken off of your hands. You would encourage your members to participate in the ministry through phone calls, through fund drives, for back office costs, because it's still the church is giving out the funds, to participate as a volunteer, to be willing to pray with people, to call them and follow up with things. And you help organize your church members to serve. Now, there's a lot of other things that can be done with Love Inc. There will always be in the center a clearinghouse where the churches partner together to meet the needs of the people in our county. But other counties, other towns have had prison ministries where as people come out of the prison, they need some help. Well, there's a ministry that they've created to meet that need. There could be job training things. There could be a whole host of opportunities that we could design in and of ourselves as we see those needs represented. But the clearinghouse will always be a part of Love Inc. because that's part of the core ministry of that ministry, and that's why we do this, to help one another this way. What else is a partner church responsibility? To accept referrals from Love Inc. Clearinghouse into existing church ministries. The Love Inc. staff will call and figure out what the needs are and how best to help that person. And you would just say, our benevolence offering will accept the recommendation of the people at the Love Inc. office. So we don't have to take care of that research. They've done it all for us, and we'll accept them for aid. You'll help us by sending people. You'll help us by putting financial support of the ministry, whether that would be a fundraiser or whether that be in your local missions budget, however that might work out, to help fund the office. We need to have a director who is probably going to be paid for full-time or almost full-time to help to train the office volunteers, to set up the systems, to be around for that. And so there will be a little bit of overhead costs for that kind of thing. And you'll participate by praying for the ministry, for the clients, for the volunteers, and for the body of Christ as we serve together. Why does Love Inc. work? Because there are unlimited resources through God, in God, and through God's people on this planet. We can do this. Love Inc. gives Christians a specific and manageable opportunity to put your faith into action. You probably, like me, have wanted to help people and you just didn't know what to do and you just didn't know how to say it. How do I start the conversation? How do I help without being condescending or appearing judgmental? How do we do this? Love Inc. provides us with training and opportunity to do that in a way that is not condescending, but is a way that shows love. And because Scripture tells us love never fails. God's love in us, through us, changes people and changes worlds and changes systems. Additionally, things you can do, you can have a Love Inc. ministry coordinator who's the flag waver. Okay, this is the Love Inc. Sunday. Let's talk about what's been happening. Let me give you the good stories and challenge you to see if you want to participate. There are gaps in services. Maybe we need personal care items for hospice care, which is what we're doing at our church right now. Maybe you need things for Operation Christmas Child. Maybe you have furniture or appliances like you guys have done, things like that, opportunities to do that. And then provide follow-up, because follow-up is where the real love is cemented. We can offer love and put it on, but it's cemented into their lives by the continuing relationship with people. What is Love Inc.? Love Inc. is the churches. It is the church. It is us, you and me. Our church is partnering together. It is also a strategy of how do we help to live out the Great Commission and the Great Commandment together for our neighbors in need. Love Inc. is that network of churches that brings us together to help the people in our county to meet their needs so that we can tell them about Christ, who will meet their ultimate needs. So thank you. That's my presentation. What questions do you have? What do you think about when you hear this? What can I do to allay fears or clear up any points for you? Yes, sorry.
What kind of training and how much do volunteers get? Is it just like a 1-hour training session, or is it like more intensive?
It would be more intensive, and actually, this will be probably another year before we're able to start doing any of those trainings. We ourselves, as a leadership team, are undergoing some training starting tomorrow with a national group. We still have to apply for a 501c3 status and finish that paperwork. And so I'm just out as kind of the evangelist, just telling churches about this so that we can start to network together before this happens and practice it, try it out a little bit. But I would think I don't have the information specifically, but I would think there'd be multiple hours of training for that. And a lot of that is going to come from the national office, things that they have done for years and years that can help us to do that. Love Inc. is in 37 states with, I think, 151 or 2 chapters, give or take a few, and a bunch in Michigan already. So they've got their stuff together. Good question. Other questions? Yes. Oh, there's one in the back. Go ahead.
I just want to put it in good word for it. I lived in the Flint area
Flint. Mm-hmm.
at Loving, and it saved a lot of things. You were nice how you said that, but underline, it keeps people from overusing the system.
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was really good because you knew when someone came to you for help, someone else had gone through the thing. And I'm wondering what the reaction to other churches are.
What have we heard from other churches? I've given this presentation twice now, probably to 15 churches overall, and great response so far. I'm going to give this again next week to United Methodist churches in Frontier and Osseo, I believe. To their they share a pastor, so I'm going to be speaking to those churches next week. So great opportunity, great response from that, because people feel the burden and they feel the frustration and they want to help and they don't know how to help and they don't want to be disobedient. And so we're stuck until this comes along and we can work together. And some churches are farther out in the county and they don't have a lot of budget for this. They may have $20, $50 a month. Well, this gives them an opportunity to actually give that money that makes a difference. Otherwise, they may never see a person in need. So it helps all of us to work together that way. So good responses. Just once, I have had a couple of negative responses from somebody else way outside the church who just said, we tried this before and it failed a long time ago. And I keep saying, yeah, I think it's different this time. I think God's doing something different. So I'm excited for that. Yes?
What are the fundraisers that you do, that they can do?
Well, we don't even have that planned out because we're so early in the process. But it'll be some kind of fundraiser to help with the back office cost of renting a place to have for an office, of some kind of salary for the director. Those are the 2 items I anticipate. Right now, one of the churches has volunteered to pay for every penny of our registration needs. So $2,500 roughly for startup costs to apply for membership and to go through the training. And that church has taken that completely on. So that's paid for up until our opening. Then we'll have to do some other things.
Stores down there that have men that have volunteered their office or whatever before for other charities or whatever.
Yeah, see, I didn't know about that. That would be a good thing to follow up.
If you can find the right person,
Mm-hmm.
may
Different hours. And we're partnering with Lifeline Food Pantry, which is out towards Reading. And they've said maybe we could have an office out there for that part of the county while they have their food pantry open. Maybe there's something else on the eastern side of the county too. So there's opportunities that way as we start to work together. Yes?
You mentioned the Lifeline Food Pantry. A lot of the churches in the county have their own, like food pantry or a clothing ministry or their own ministries. Would Love Inc. be more of like, if people had those specific needs, be like sending people there, or would it be a way of consolidating those? Like, are those still going to be independent?
Yes, at the present, they're still going to be independent. And we're not looking to replace anything. We're just looking to help churches do what they're already doing in a better way so that they have that opportunity to tell them about Christ. So we want to take the back office part out of it, the research, the vetting process, the record keeping, and take that away from the churches because that's some of the hardest part. And then allow the churches to do what they do best. So, yep, we'll reference people to those, have a list of ministries that we know about, and then recommend they go to those. But we don't, other than the clearinghouse, which is the networking side of it, we don't have anything else yet planned. And if God leads, we'll see how that would work. Good. And more questions? I believe it's 37 states. It's over 20 years.
And what kind of evangelical response has it had? What kind of outreach has it had to these people? Are they drawing in? Are they coming in? Are they hearing about Christ?
Well, that's going to be up to each individual chapter, how they're doing that. But everything I've heard has been really, really good in that regard. But that's up to us, too. The national organization helps us with the structure, but it's still our responsibility to speak the words of the gospel to people. So you're going to get a variance depending on the city that way. They probably do. We haven't got that far into the process yet. But if you go to the Love Inc. website, there's a part on the right side where it just kind of continually changes over and has stories of families that have been impacted. So that would be a good place to go and look and see what's happening there. More questions? I must have left something unsaid.
Just one of the things that I want to say from a pastoral point of view is a lot of the headaches that we have in trying to figure out legitimacy. And Dave Ryan and Bonnie McCosh spend a lot of time just trying to check up on people and that kind of thing. This just does it from a central location and eliminates a lot of the headache and duplication of efforts that they're doing and we're doing and First United Methodist Church is doing and Hub is doing. We're all doing the same work, where this would centrally locate, instead of doing it 6 times over, reinvent the wheel 6 times over, it's one place. And be able to check and realize that, because I know lots of times we'll have a utility bill that's $700, $800. We don't want to give $100 for it and then just have it disconnected and then waste our efforts for it. We want to make sure that it's actually satisfied. That's what Love Inc. would do is coordinate those efforts to make sure that we're not wasting our funds and that somebody's not taking us to the cleaners, which unfortunately happens as well.
I was going to say, we had an example of today. I was in the church for a few minutes. A man came in and said, who do I apply to for help? And they were told, here's the application. And he said, well, I've been to one church. They'll give me 200, but I need another 100. And if I don't get that other 100, they won't give me the 200. Well, he was asked how much he might give here, and he was given his. That's not enough. So I'm sure he went to some other place, and that is pretty.
That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not wise to give them cash.
But we don't. Yeah, it goes directly to it. Dave, you were going to say something.
Well, the educational part of the recipients is one of the most important things we can do. Because a lot of these people just don't understand the basics of budgeting your income, whatever your income is. When Carol and I were married,
certainly say that.
We got down to a serious budget, and we more than saved 20, or we saved 100% more than the doctor estimated the cost of a normal delivery. And that's where the help starts. It isn't after your light bill has gone in arrears for 6 months, because this group is not going to come up with enough cash to take care of those kind of customers.
I was on the, excuse me, I was on the Salvation Advisory Board for Salvation Army Advisory Board for 6 years. And I brought up, and just teach these people how to budget. Well, after I sat there and studied it for a while, these people don't budget. You know, they just can't get the budget. That isn't their life. Dave was talking, he was raised different than what people are today. But nobody knows how to budget today when it comes to those type of people. And they probably always will before the rest of their lives, because they don't know how to use it.
Unless they can be convinced that.
Unless convinced that something to change our life in the Lord's way, that's the only way we can do it, basically. And that would help a great deal. Sure, I know some people that serve the Lord but aren't very good budget either, but we just hope that we can get to those type of people.
I don't mean to take this away from Jason, but one other thing I wanted to point out is that I was in Huntington until '94 when I went to seminary, and Huntington was just starting Love Incorporated in 1994, and I still keep in contact with the church down there, and they're really, really pleased with the way the ministry happens through Love Incorporated, now that they've had a chance to use it for however many years, was that 20 years?
19.
Is how many?
19.
19, okay. Glad you're good at math. I trust the people in Huntington that I was working with to know that they see the benefits of Love Incorporated. That's why I put our church in support of Love Inc. How much we get involved will depend on us and how much we want to do. But I'm one of the, put our name on the line of one of the 6 churches that was going to support it, only because it was going to help us out to be able to eliminate a lot of the extra work that we were doing just to take care of the investigation and the checking out of people to make sure that the leads were legitimate. So I just want to get that in.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah.
Does it involve only monetary? I mean, would this involve only monetary help, or would, like the other thing that she was talking about, if a person needed help digging out stumps,
Yeah.
they'd come to that main office and they would have some kind of an outreach to the people that have tools and equipment to
Well,
dig out stumps? Or?
Right now, because Love Inc. is a clearinghouse, they would say this church has a ministry for that, or this is an outdoor group that's meeting that kind of a need. But Love Inc. doesn't provide that service on its own. It just references other existing ministries.
Like if within our congregation, I can't even if you were that a good example, but if each congregation had its individuals say what they would be willing to do as a work project
Right.
to help.
Exactly.
Then it might be a work project that one person couldn't do, but maybe one person from this church and 3 persons from that church. So not only keep track of the way that they want to commit themselves monetarily, but also the talents that they can commit to it.
And God's people respond, in my experience, very naturally to that. So if we start to present needs and show how this is making a difference in lives, just in the financial sphere, they're going to say to themselves, well, what more can we do? What can I contribute? I can do electrical wiring, or I can chop wood.
Even somebody gets on a tight budget themselves, and all they could give is time to help do something.
This gives them an opportunity to really give time. So has a few good men come and talk to you guys?
Yes.
That's another example. We could reference people to that ministry, or the food pantry shelves, or the medical, St. Peter's Clinic, and then people will try things. Let's try this. I'll get some people together and we'll do a lawn mowing ministry or something, right? But it gives an opportunity for that ministry to come together, and then maybe only 4 people, but they're from 4 different churches that would never have found one another apart from the Love Inc. structure that just kind of undergirds all of that. Good questions. Anything else? I think that's about right. Thank you.